Well, welcome to what is right now a makeshift studio. And wow, what a hell of a first day for this 2023 49ers season. They didn't even practice, and we got news about two of the most important players on the football team. Brock Purdy is fully back. QB1, essentially proclaimed that by Kyle Shanahan today. Those of us paying attention knew that that was coming, but Purdy, that recovery sure went warp speed, didn't it? 4.5 months after the surgery that a lot of people were worried that Purdy had too late. When Purdy had that surgery on March 10th, everybody was saying, well, he should have had it sooner. Now he's not going to be ready for week one. Well, he waited until the swelling went down. March 10th, the surgery happened. And now 4.5 months later, Brock Purdy ready to go. Then on the Nick Bosa front, you have the most important player on offense, Brock Purdy, return, but you have Nick Bosa not return. And that's what the focus of this show is going to be. But we're going to talk about a whole lot more. I'm calling it the Nick Bosa holdout special. We're going to delve into what the 49ers are thinking, what Bosa might be thinking, how the two sides can reach an agreement so that Nick Bosa can start practicing. Because to summarize the situation, the 49ers do not expect Nick Bosa to take that practice field until he signs his new contract. And I wrote about it today. You could see the piece up here on The Athletic. It is in the description of this video linked, so go ahead and check that out. We'll be talking about some of the stuff that I wrote about, but I think for contractual pieces, the written word really is the strongest way to go about things. You could see some graphics. You could see where the 49ers stand. And, you know, from the perspective of Nick Bosa, this might be, and this is from the perspective of the 49ers too, this might be the largest deal for a defensive player in NFL history. It almost certainly is going to be the largest deal in 49ers history. That number currently belongs to the contract Jimmy Garoppolo signed in 2018. But Nick Bosa is set to exceed that. And the 49ers right now need to find acceptable terms with him, or else he is going to continue to sit on the sidelines and possibly stay away from the team facility. He wasn't there today, at least at around 11 o'clock. That's when John Lynch spoke. And John Lynch spoke to Brian Arold, who is Nick Bosa's agent, earlier this morning. And after that conversation, it was clear to John that Nick Bosa would not be around today and probably won't be around into the foreseeable future. Kyle Shanahan did mention today that Nick Bosa is not eligible to be fined by the NFL or by the team. The NFL mandates team to fine players who miss training camp practice. Kyle Shanahan said that he thought that Nick Bosa was exempt from that. And that's up to $50,000 per day, by the way. That's the number that Kyle Shanahan tossed out there. Veterans get fined $50,000 a day for not showing up. Kyle was technically incorrect. Bosa is not exempt from being fined because he is on his fifth-year option. Because he's on his fifth-year option, I read the CBA today. It's heavily contradictory, but one of the clauses supersedes another. Because he's a fifth-year player, though, on that fifth-year option, Nick Bosa is eligible to be fined only $40,000 per day missed, and that included today. But one of the asterisks there for those players on rookie contracts that are on their fifth-year option is that a team can waive or reduce the fine or fines later on. So perhaps Kyle Shanahan today saying that he didn't think that Nick Bosa could be fined was Kyle Shanahan just slipping and essentially saying that the 49ers plan to forgive the fines for Nick Bosa once he does sign his contract. Or maybe Nick Bosa's contract will be so damn big that $40,000 a day won't matter. You multiply $40,000 a day times the length of training camp, I think it comes out to about $2 million, maybe a little bit more. So we're talking a contract of over $30 million per year for Nick Bosa. So you can tell one is chump change, one is not. Although to most of us, I think everybody watching this right now, unless Nick is watching right now, I think that $40,000 per day is significant. But the 49ers can waive those fines. So what Kyle Shanahan said today was incorrect. Bosa will be fined. 49ers have to fine him, but they can waive those fines or they can reduce them moving forward. And that would happen after Nick Bosa re-signed with the team. So what's the deal here? What's the disagreement between Bosa's side and the 49ers? That's the fundamental question at hand. And for that, I present to you some data. This is the contractual situation for NFL defensive linemen, the top 5 D-line contracts in the NFL. In this first column right here, you have average per year. That is what the contract breaks down to. If you take the total value and divide it by the length, that is often a vanity number, but it is important to players and it is important to agents because they use this to determine who the highest paid player is. And then you have fully guaranteed salary. This is more important from a practical sense. This is the amount of money that a player is guaranteed to receive for skill. So if a player shows up out of shape or isn't trying at practice, then they won't necessarily get it, but it is guaranteed for skill. And it's essentially assuming the player continues the habits that led to him signing his contract. It's essentially money in the bank for that football player. So fully guaranteed is a good practical amount, the amount of fully guaranteed money in a contract. It's a good practical amount to measure the value of a contract. And APY is the vanity measurement, but it is an important one. So the top defensive linemen as far as salary in the league right now are Aaron Donald, TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Quinnen Williams. There's something really interesting about this list. Wonder if you notice what it is. If you haven't guessed, it's that we have 2 defensive tackles on this list of the top 5 defensive line contracts. You have Donald here at the top and Quinnen Williams, who recently signed his deal at number 5. It wasn't until 2022 when Aaron Donald signed this mega deal at $31.7 million per year that there was a single defensive tackle in the top 5. Normally, defensive ends are the completely dominant members. They have all 5 spots in the top 5 D-line contracts. On average, edge rushers, defensive ends, whatever you want to call them, still make more than defensive tackles on average. But something might be shifting, at least at the very elite echelons of the NFL. Aaron Donald signed the most valuable contract in NFL defense history. And Quinnen Williams, who was in Bosa's draft class, signed one that allowed him to crack the top 5 of all defensive linemen, not just defensive tackles. In the past, we would have said, okay, Nick Bosa will sign a $29 or $30 million deal per year to exceed TJ Watt's deal. It would have been simple because look at, here's Joey Bosa, Nick's brother, same agent. In 2020, he signed a deal worth $27 million per year. 1 year later, in 2021, TJ Watt one-upped Joey Bosa and signed a deal worth $28 million per year. The line of thinking at that time in 2021 was that Nick Bosa would simply sign a deal worth more than TJ Watt's and worth more than his brother, Joey Bosa's, maybe at $30 million per year. Maybe he'd want to be the first player to crack the $30 million barrier. And that would be it. Business would be done. But then the Rams won the Super Bowl. And when the Rams won the Super Bowl, Aaron Donald got paid. And Aaron Donald got paid an absurd amount. I mean, he not only blew the roof off of the defensive tackle market, there was nobody close to this top 5. He blew the roof off the edge rusher market because he was Aaron Donald. 31.7 is the new high water mark for all defensive linemen. TJ Watt still has the most fully guaranteed money because his deal was longer, $80 million in fully guaranteed money. Donald was only 3 years, so he only got $46.5 million. Anyway, that's the gist of the impasse right now between the 49ers and Nick Bosa, if I had to guess. They're keeping this private, but I think that Brian Ayrolt, who represented Joey Bosa and is now representing Nick Bosa, wants Nick Bosa to sign a contract that is both the highest ever in terms of average per year, which would exceed Aaron Donald's number, and has the most fully guaranteed money, which would exceed TJ Watt's number. And guess what? Nick Bosa just won Defensive Player of the Year, so he can make a strong argument that he deserves it. The problem is that on the other side, the 49ers have to afford it. Nick Bosa can deserve the contract, but the 49ers must afford it. And the 49ers 2024 salary cap situation means they must tread carefully. The 49ers next year, not this one, next year, have already $270+ million in liabilities against the cap. If Nick Bosa signs a mega deal right now, or shall we say when he signs a mega deal in the coming days or weeks, that number will almost certainly exceed $280 million in liabilities. The cap this season, the salary cap for 2023, was $225 million. The new NFL's new TV deals, YouTube, all that good stuff, Amazon, Those are kicking in now. So the NFL is set to raise the salary cap since it's tied to revenue next year. We won't know till about January or February. It should raise significantly, but it's probably not going to raise all the way to $270 or $280 million. So just by simple math, we realize the 49ers are going to have to subtract. They're going to have to find a way to rework some contracts, maybe cut some players, find their way under the 2024 cap. That all means that every dollar matters as we speak right now with Nick Bosa gearing up to get his extension. And the 49ers need to negotiate this contract as shrewdly as possible. Now, they have several tricks up their sleeve, and this is something I wrote about. So make sure you, again, go ahead and check out this article on Athletic. You're going to want to be part of our 49ers coverage over the course of this season. It is as in-depth as there is, and you got a little preview of it on the screen. But the 49ers and Nick Bosa are in a, this is a stare down right now, are in a position where they both want to milk the most favorable terms out of each other. And Nick Bosa is going to use all of the leverage power that he could potentially obtain, right? And that is happening at the deadline of reporting to training camp and then be playing in week 1. Bosa won't want to start losing game checks because that could hurt the pocketbook significantly. But I don't think he wants to be fined either, even if the 49ers will forgive it. Hell, Nick Bosa, this guy loves getting out on the football field. He probably wants to be out there practicing with his teammates, but his agent has to do what's best for him. And this is what could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Nick Bosa. Of course, everybody hopes they're going to be in line for another contract after this, but this is a time to capitalize. Bosa's stock is hot right now. It's as high as it's ever been. He's the reigning defensive player of the year. The number for Aaron Donald is within reach. The number of fully guaranteed money from TJ Watt is within reach. And the 49ers badly need Nick Bosa. So Bosa has leverage, and he's going to exert some of that leverage. Now it comes with a little danger of, a self-harming wound from Nick Bosa, right? Because you can get fined. Maybe you won't be in as great of shape if you're not at training camp, although Fred Warner today so shrewdly said, there's one player I'm not worried about him being in shape or not. It's Nick Bosa. He's going to stay in shape. He's going to be working out at his gym in Florida. So from Bosa's perspective, he thinks he's not missing much if he's not at training camp right now, or at least not enough to justify taking the 49ers' feet off the fire. Now, last season, if we want to compare timing, Deebo Samuel hadn't signed his contract at the start of training camp either. And Deebo Samuel was a hold-in. Hold-in is a way to get around the collective bargaining agreements, mandatory fines, and Deebo Samuel would have been subject to mandatory fines that the 49ers couldn't waive last year because Deebo was not, he was not a fifth-year option player. Deebo Samuel's a former second-round pick. So Deebo, because he didn't want to get fined and the 49ers wouldn't be able to forgive that fine, showed up to training camp, and he did not practice. That's a loophole to get around this new CBA. Nick Bosa can do the same thing as Deebo Samuel without showing up if the 49ers have promised to waive his fines when this process is finished. I'm not sure if they have, but Kyle Shanahan today, what he said might have hinted at that. But last year, for comparison's sake, Deebo Samuel signed his contract 6 days into camp. So that would be around July 31st for Nick Bosa. We're at July 25th right now. So these deadlines spur action, and John Lynch has talked about that over the course of this whole offseason regarding the Bosa extension. The deadlines certainly spur action, but they're not these hard deadlines that cause action to, just happen at the snap of a finger. They typically gradually force movement. And last year, that's what happened. Deebo Samuel held in for 6 days. Then he signed the contract. He was on the practice field the next day. Nick Bosa currently holding out because he wasn't at the facility today. We'll see if he shows up, but it probably doesn't make a difference one way or the other. If anything, his camp and Brian Arolt, his agent, can hold the 49ers' feet to the fire a little bit hotter by him holding out rather than them holding in, because the optics are tougher for the 49ers if Bosa is not there. But he can sign the contract on any day when they finally reach terms, and then he could report to practice. So is it something to be freaked out about? No. Is it something to be mildly concerned about? Yes, because you don't want distractions at this point of the season. You don't want this to start carrying 2-3 weeks into training camp and then the preseason. You want to confidently move forward and really point to your track record. And the 49ers have a good track record here of signing players before the start of training camp or around the start of training camp. It started with Fred Warner, or actually started with George Kittle in 2020, continued with Fred Warner in 2021, then to Deebo Samuel in 2022. Every year, the 49ers are re-signing one of their own. And this year, it's Nick Bosa's turn. So the track record has been solid for the 49ers. They're 3 of 3 so far. I don't think there's any compelling reason to believe they won't be 4 of 4 by the time that this Bosa situation ends. They've already clearly said that he's untouchable. They're not planning to trade him. He is so damn important to this defense. And it's a matter of making ends meet as far as money goes between the 49ers and Nick Bosa. Because if you look at the cap situation, the 49ers, it's smart business for them to be careful, especially when you're dealing with this kind of money. This is serious money. Donald at $31.7 million APY, TJ Watt at $80 million fully guaranteed. So I'm going to open this up to some questions, maybe about the 49ers 2024 salary cap situation, maybe about Nick Bosa in particular, what you're thinking about this contract. I'm going to put 49ers Q&A up there. And why don't we get after this? Now, I have to say, before I take a look at the questions, this is the new spot in San Francisco for the season. The frames are showing up soon. You probably recognize this from last year. It's the same 2 jerseys that we had through the 2022 season, hanging up on the wall without the frames. I know of the offseason, it got a lot more formal with the Frank Gore jersey and the Shane Leckler jersey and the Rudy Rudiger jersey for a while in frames. Well, frames are about to arrive for the 12 luck and the 17 jersey, which we can't flip around until if and when the 49ers win the Super Bowl. So it's a makeshift setup right now, but every single day it's going to get a little bit better, just like the 49ers as a team throughout the course of training camp. So I'm opening up the questions right now. Hopefully everybody is doing well on what is a beautiful Tuesday night here in San Francisco, I'm sure in the whole Bay Area. Summer Tuesdays, July 25th. I don't think it's an either or between team player or me player. It's a professional sport. It's these guys' job. And Nick Bosa wants to be fairly compensated as the best defensive player in football that he believes he is. As soon as the 49ers find a way to make it work, they'll make it work. And that's just how negotiations do work. And then Nick Bosa will live up to his contract. I think that's what everybody expects in this situation. Everybody wants to know what 17 is, but you guys know the deal. 49ers have to win the Super Bowl before you find out. Not sure what the first day with pads is going to be. The 49ers normally like to go about a week. They're doing 3 on, 1 off. With 3 on, that is practice tomorrow, practice Thursday, practice Friday, day off Saturday, and then maybe pads on Sunday. So it might make sense to put the pads on coming out of the break, or they'll go one day out of the break without pads and put them on Monday. I did see Justin Herbert's deal, $52 million a year. Not that long ago, when the richest contract in 49ers history is Jimmy Garoppolo's. That was $27.5 million a year. That was the top of the NFL. That was the biggest deal ever signed in 2018. And now you've got multiple guys in the 50s, including Justin Herbert today. 49ers signed an Oregon cornerback, by the way. I know Herbert's an Oregon Duck, not a contemporary of Herbert's, but Terrence Mitchell, the 49ers signed, 31-year-old corner, to fill out their roster ahead of tomorrow's first practice. Mike is going to be there Monday and Tuesday. He might get to see the 49ers wearing some pads. Answer to your question, David, not a Bosa question, but do you try to look at defensive alignment and play as well when you report on how the quarterbacks look at training camp? Yes, of course. I try to look at everything. Starting tomorrow, we're going to have the spreadsheet that kind of logs everything that happens at these practices for the quarterbacks. So it's going to go into detail with some notes about what each quarterback saw, what the bad plays were, what the good plays were. Then we also tally the completion percentage, and we take everything with a grain of salt. It's just training camp. So you can't look at completions and attempts and thinks that that's the end all be all. So I try to look at as much as possible from my vantage point, which is just they're standing on the sideline taking notes. And then I try to make sense of everything as we dissect training camp. I think the 49ers, if that's what it takes to get Nick Bosa to be happy, I think he deserves it. Now, whether or not the 49ers can afford it in a contract style and structure that Bosa is happy with and is sustainable within the 49ers cap, that's a little bit tougher. But, if both sides are open to communicate, they can hammer out a deal that works. Now, to give you specifics, the 49ers used a double bonus structure with players like Fred Warner in the past. And they did it with Deebo Samuel too. Essentially means signing bonus up front and then another guaranteed roster bonus that hits in year two. So the bonuses that are guaranteed, both the signing and the roster bonuses, they both stretch out like accordions across the life of the contract as far as their cap hit goes. So they're a good tool to push the cap hit further into the future, but you got to be willing to pay. And that's why Jed York is so appreciated right now by Kyle Shanahan, because he's been willing to pay. So the 49ers can run their dual bonus structure with Nick Bosa, or they can take it a step further and they can run a triple bonus structure. It's like Jalen Hurts' contract, which is $255 million with the Eagles. They had the signing bonus, then they had a roster bonus that kicked in year two, and they had another roster bonus that kicks in year three. Like that, they're able to guarantee Jalen Hurts money, but they spread it out over a long period of time. It's riskier to do that for a defensive end because defensive ends get hurt more than quarterbacks do. And, defensive ends aren't as valuable as quarterbacks, although Bosa is pretty damn valuable to the 49ers. So if the 49ers have to turn to a mechanism like that to fit a square peg into a round hole with this contract to make everybody happy, to give Bosa record money and still fit it under their cap, if the 49ers have to do that, they're going to have to be willing to commit massive financial resources. It's a Brinks truck to Nick Bosa in guaranteed money. Nobody said they're not willing to do that, but they're going to be willing to do that, and they're going to have to do that in a smart way. And that's why this is a monumental negotiation right now. So I think the 49ers are willing, but this is complicated financial stuff, and I hope that I'm explaining it well. There's a reason why I put all these charts up in my articles, why you guys can go ahead and check out the writing, which I think is extremely detailed in my pieces about how the 49ers maneuver the salary cap, because this truly is a game of Tetris that the 49ers are trying to master. Damn right, Eric. It is 50K time. Crossed 40K yesterday. Appreciate everybody. Thank you. Looks like more undrafted running back for the Chargers paying Justin Herbert. It is way too early to be speculating about who might be traded next season and who won't be. First off, the salary cap is going to really increase because of the new TV deals tied to NFL revenues. Second, you don't know who's going to play well this year. You don't know who's going to play poorly this year. It's anybody's guess. You got to collect all the data and have it be as recent as possible before you decide who you're going to trade in the 2024 offseason. The 49ers do not seem concerned at all with the Mitch Wishnowsky back injury. He's on the NFI, non-football injury list, because he got hurt away from the facility lifting weights. But John Lynch said that there is not long-term concern with that injury. This is a good question, and I will say unequivocally no, the 49ers are not rushing Purdy to return. He has been fully cleared by the leading elbow specialist in the world, Dr. Keith Meister, who's the team doctor for the Texas Rangers. He specializes in elbow reconstructions with his baseball background. Again, Purdy has been fully cleared for a while now by Keith Meister. It's the 49ers who are actually slow playing this a bit by having Purdy not throw every third day. So he throws 2 consecutive days, doesn't throw. That's how the first 2 weeks of camp are going to go. So the 49ers are actually taking this as cautiously as possible. And I think because of that, the 49ers are setting themselves up for the best of both worlds and a quarterback situation they could have only dreamt of a few months ago. They get Brock Purdy getting way more training camp time and training camp reps than he did last year, and he did fine with the amount that he got last year as QB3 on one hand. And on the other hand, they get Trey Lance and Sam Darnold splitting first-team reps every third day. We know Trey Lance needs reps. We know Sam Darnold needs reps, and they'll probably even fit Brandon Allen in there for reps, maybe not first team reps, because they say that Brandon Allen has earned it. At the end of the day, the 49ers look at their quarterback room holistically. They look at it as a group. They want the strongest group possible. Well, the problem with trying to cultivate a group is that if you're just focused on one guy with all the first team quarterback reps, it's going to be hard for 2 and 3, especially if 2 and 3 are competing and Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are competing for the backup spot. It's really hard to gauge who's going to be the better QB. But the setup the 49ers have now is one where Brock Purdy is practicing with the first team 66% of the time on 2/3 of the days. And the other 33% of the time is split between Darnold and Trey Lance. So that's about 17% or so. 17% of the first team snaps for Trey Lance, 17% of the first team snaps for Sam Darnold, and then 66% of the first team snaps for Brock Purdy. It's an unusual distribution. Normally that QB1 is going to get 95% of the first team snaps. But this unusual distribution allows the 49ers to foster QB depth a little bit more. And hey, to me, that makes sense for a team that's coming off a season where they flexed QB depth to reach the NFC Championship game, right? With Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy, but then lost the NFC title game because they ran out of QB depth due to injuries with Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson going down. So the 49ers are in a unique position of having to react to losing all their quarterbacks after having a lot of quarterbacks to begin with. Well, you replenish the quarterback room, and then you have to make sure the quarterback room is developed and trained enough to be strong throughout in case guys start going down again. That's how they're set up for this training camp. Val Ramos, regular viewer. Brock is back. Good news, he says. Mike seems to have a lot of Wishnowsky questions. Any concern with Wishnowsky out, him not holding for Moody? Well, I mean, it's going to be a change here during training camp. We'll see which backup quarterback does that for the 49ers. They didn't sign another punter to do it. So if it stretches into the regular season, obviously everything with the kicking battery is really important. But for now, you just got to work with what you've got. And maybe Mitch Wishnowsky is back sooner rather than later. You can come off of NFI on any day that you're ready to practice again. So let's just see how this plays out. It's better for that to happen now than during the week of a game, right? Week of a game, Wishnowsky unable to hold. All of a sudden, you got to bring in a new holder, and then it's such an intricate process, becomes a bit more of a problem. You'd rather have this happen in the off season when you could use training camp to practice with replacements. And Kyle Juszczyk has held before. You are correct, and he's held effectively before. Kyle Juszczyk held in the must-win game, 49ers-Rams, Week 18 of the 2021 season. Remember, Juwan Jennings tied that game with a touchdown, less than a minute left. 49ers still had to kick the extra point. Kyle Juszczyk had a hold for that extra point from Robbie Gould, and he held well. Sorry, go for broke. I didn't really see your question. It's really tough for me to see questions all the time. If you want to ask it again, I'll try to answer, but it's a one-man kind of situation here as far as handling the questions. Mike does do a good job, but that's not his job. So you're envious of the Mexican food I get to eat. Yeah, I went to Taqueria Cancun. There's already a video up. I put it up like an hour before I went live. Tennessee doesn't have great Mexican food. You're right. It's tough. But Tennessee's got some other types of good food. Shohan, the Indian place, downtown Nashville. You got to check that one out. So it's like a southern food and Indian fusion. Juice is the backup holder, yes. 49ers do not have their team captains named yet, so we will see after training camp. They're going to determine a lot of this during camp. Mike reminds me to not forget the footage from Africa, and that's coming. Don't worry. That was going to be my little pre-training camp special. Because I have to look something up. before we get to that. This is pretty cool. It's a cool coincidence. Okay, I've looked it up. I'll be ready to go. What quarterbacks are practicing tomorrow? Maybe we should make this a daily thing, checking in on which QBs. Tomorrow will be no Brock Purdy. He's thrown 2 days in a row. So tomorrow, Brock Purdy gets off. Tomorrow, it'll be Trey Lance. It'll be Sam Darnold. And then it will be Brandon Allen. Those 3 will be practicing tomorrow. Purdy the next day. Player locker room interviews don't start until closer to the regular season. Right now, it's still going to be training camp. Did I run with the Lions? We'll see. So this is what happened in the offseason. And I think it's a good time to start thinking about turning the page toward the regular season, but also a good time to remember how damn cool this offseason was for not just the 49ers, but I got to travel a lot as well. And the 49ers have a lot of travel planned for this 2023 season. In fact, the 49ers are scheduled to travel about 29,000 miles, which is more than enough to circle the entire globe. It only takes about 24,000 miles to circle the entire globe. So this offseason, as you know, was all over the place. And some of the stuff that I saw in Africa, I think was neat enough to share on the channel just because I like to keep it a little bit balanced here. And we could play it while we discuss some 49ers football. But first, I think I found somebody important to the 49ers in my time in Africa. Pearl Crater, Tanzania, one of the wonders of the natural world. And I think I found where all the officials are from. Ah, yes, I did find the refs in Africa. This is the Ngorongoro Crater, Tanzania, and Serengeti Plain, which is famous from the movie Lion King. And there are the zebras or the officials running because they're being hunted by lions. This was one of the cooler things that we saw all trip. The lions didn't quite get them, though. They tried to form a perimeter around the zebra, and the zebra noticed them at the last minute. And because of that, the zebra are nice and fast. I don't think NFL refs run as fast as these zebra do. Because of that, the lions were left hungry, as you'll see the pride of lions right here. Waiting patiently, looking at the potential catch that got away. It's kind of like the 49ers looking at potential Super Bowl trophies that got away in 2019 and then in 2021 and then in 2022. Probably too soon for jokes like that, but we also saw some giraffes up close. This was crazy. This gets me thinking, do the 49ers have any really tall players? I mean, the last really, really long player that they had was Levine Toilolo. It was what, 6'8", 6'9", maybe 6'8", I think. Had him in 2019. But it's more of a roster built on speed rather than height for the 49ers now. So maybe the drafts don't apply. You get a quick shot of Margot here, checking out the giraffes. This was cool. This was in the morning when the fog was still completely enshrouding everything in the crater as we were driving around. And this crater just created by, I think they said it was like 3 million years ago, a big eruption. And you just have all these animals in there. This is near the crater. This is an elephant. Reminds me of what the 49ers need to do on the offensive and defensive lines. You're going to need that beef to perform on both sides of the football. And these elephants will mess you up. And I think these baboons realize that. That's why they're scattering. That's why they're getting out of the way. This elephant's pull blocking right now. They're running power. He's moving from left to right. He's clearing a very, very big hole. But the 49ers could be the best they've been in the trenches when you consider both sides cumulatively of the Shanahan tenure. I think the line can be better left to right than it ever has been with that interior back for a second year after they're all first-year starters last year. Obviously, the hinge point is Colton McKivitz. And the defensive line, I mean, they've got Javon Hargrave. They've got Bosa. They've got Hargrave. I mean, those guys are elephants. Those guys are big, strong. They'll mess you up. Eric Armstead. See who that fourth defensive lineman is for the 49ers, but they definitely, I think, this year are going to be strong. Now, will it lead to a game against the Buffalo Bills? That's my question. These are buffalo, by the way. There's a little baby buffalo that takes a look at us on the road, and then it continues walking. Yeah, so will it lead to a game against the Buffalo Bills? That would be in the Super Bowl against 49ers fan Josh Allen, or somebody who grew up as a 49ers fan, Josh Allen. Maybe on the way to play the Bills, 49ers will have to play a cheetah of some sort. Or maybe they'll have to play the cheetah himself in the Super Bowl. He plays for the Dolphins. Check out these sunsets, by the way, that we saw in Africa. This is on the Serengeti Plain. Those are wildebeest. I mean, it was absolutely spectacular, out of this world. I really wanted to share some of this footage with you. I know I did a couple lives, but it was worth just putting everything together. This is at like 5:30 a.m. You could see the hot air balloons in the distance. People will take hot air balloon rides so they could get, they float really close to all the wildlife as the sun is rising out there. And here you have Diomero Lenore. He calls himself the hyena. It's a self-given nickname from the 49ers cornerback, Diomero Lenore, because he says he likes doing the dirty work. And the coolest part about this offseason was that we got to stay in a tent on the Serengeti Plain. So these hyenas, one time I heard a lion roaring outside our tent, and I'm pretty sure this lion could take out this canvas if he wanted to. So we thought we were going to die there for a second. But we also heard a lot of hyena. And I mean, these guys, they make ugly, ugly noises, but they're vicious. And if Diomero Lenore wants to continue playing like a hyena, that's what he calls himself, 49ers will be fine with that. All right, here it is. Maybe the 49ers will have this close of an encounter with a lion this year. The Lions, they seem to be a decent team in the NFC on the rise. This was absolutely crazy. Male lion walked right through all the vehicles, just chilling, unbothered. Not a care in the world. King of the Serengeti, the lion. But yeah, seriously, the Detroit Lions are going to be good this year, I think. So we have a couple shots of this guy. It's the same lion. This was after all the females failed in the hunt of the officials of the zebra. This lion was just hanging out. Didn't get any food yet, so just enjoying the beautiful day, walking around. How about the leopard in the tree? 49ers play the Jaguars this year, not the Leopards. There are no leopards in the NFL. This was really cool. We got to see the Big Five that include rhinos. I don't have the video of the rhinos here. They were a little bit further away. But the leopard in the tree was some of the best, most quality content. So, yeah, that was this off season. It was a hell of a time. We could finish up with the giraffes. Nice shot. So I have to say, the reason that I bring all this up from the off season is that I added up how many miles it took for us to get from the United States to Africa. Then we went from Africa to Dubai. I could show some stuff from Dubai later. Then earlier we went to Prague, right, in May, where a lot of my family's from. All of that flying was about 30,000 miles, which is exactly the same amount of flying that the 49ers are going to be doing this season, about 29,000 miles. So not exactly, but around the same amount, 29,000 miles, which happens to be enough to travel around the entire globe. You only need about 25,000 miles for that. So as the 49ers are about to embark on a journey that takes them around the entire globe, I thought it was fitting to look back on one that took us the same distance. So we turn the page to the next chapter, and this one should be very, very exciting for the 49ers. Fun to do that on the evening of training camp because, I mean, today was report day. Tomorrow is the first practice. Tomorrow we're going to get to see the 49ers line up for the first time. Guys are healthy again. You're only going to see a couple players that you might have expected to see out there miss the practice, and they're ready to attack this 2023 season with vigor. So we're going to go back to 49ers Q&A, see what you guys are saying in the comment section. Hope you liked it. Seems that people did. That's cool. I'll post that on its own on the channel if you want to go check it out. Post it on its own and then put in some stuff from Dubai. Yep, today was a good first day of school. You were right. I think the trash talk between the offense and defense coming into the camp is amazing. The best 49ers teams of the 80s with Ronnie Lott, then the 90s, Ken Norton, Gary Plummer, they talked a lot of crap to each other. That was the modus operandi. Iron sharpened iron. It was serious during those during those training camp practices. So last year when Fred Warner and Brandon Ayuk squared up to fight, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, the 49ers are trying to deliver dynastic vibes. The iron is again sharpening the iron. And, when it's a bunch of alpha males out on the football field, it's not always going to be, cute and pretty. You don't want guys, you don't want that testosterone going after, you're going to want situations where guys are ruffling feathers. Let's put it that way. And this year, it seems that that's starting maybe a little bit earlier. Some of that unbridled enthusiasm is coming through social media posts a little bit before camp actually starts. Now, I don't think anything crazy is going to happen until pads come on, but there probably is going to be at least one scuffle. There's got to be, right? A hungry team fights at training camp. Now, they don't go out there swinging helmets and injuring each other, but a good little scuffle, that happened with the 49ers in the 80s. It happened with the 49ers in the 90s, and it actually happened with last year's 49ers as well. It wasn't the first time last year. It's happened several times. It's football, part of the game. I think part of a team, part of a team's DNA, a team that's ready at least. That's cool. Really cool that you get to take your son to training camp. Make sure you say hello if you see me walking by. Everybody talks about Dion versus Jerry Rice, but that never happened at training camp. You know why? Because Dion wasn't with the 49ers during training camp. Deion Sanders played only one season for the 49ers, 1994. Deion Sanders signed with the 49ers after, I believe, week 3, maybe after week 2, but definitely not any earlier than that. So he wasn't with the 49ers in training camp. So we can imagine that Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice went after it in training camp, but that did not actually happen. 49ers fighting with the Raiders. That would be crazy. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo was fully cleared today, or at least it was announced that he was fully cleared today on the same day that Brock Purdy was fully cleared. A little parallel structure there between 49ers QB and Raiders QB. Former 49ers QB Jimmy Garoppolo sets it up for a convergence on August 10th in Vegas. Isn't every team store-bought in a way? Because even the players who you developed, you've got to pay. You got to bring in free agents. There's no way that you could win with just homegrown guys. You've got to have some success in free agency. So it's professional sports. Of course, it's going to be store-bought. Jimmy Garoppolo against Fred Warner. Although I think that Warner likes to fight his own teammates to motivate them. Last year, he was picking on Brandon Ayuk all of training camp. Seemed to get the best out of Brandon Ayuk. 1,000-yard season. See who Warner's next victim is. Somebody asked him that today, jokingly. Warner just chuckled. It is healthy to drink a lot of water. Just finished a big glass. I am not used to shows this long. The off season was a little easy. I was soft after this off season. Gonna have to build up the stamina again for these hour-long shows. More catches this season, McCaffrey or Ayuk? I think Ayuk's average is going to be higher. That's for sure. What do you guys think? McCaffrey or Ayuk? Put it in the comment section. I have no idea. We'll see. What do I expect Bosa's contract to be? Well, I wrote an article about that. Let me show you. I think it's a good one because it's very relevant. So this is a direct answer to Serene Chaos's question. What Nick Bosa's new contract, a 49ers record likely, might look like. I wrote this in April, so it's been 3 months. And here is my answer to your question. I think they might use that double option bonus. Maybe they'll even use 3 because since I wrote this, Jalen Hurts did a triple option bonus contract. But I think that they'll give Nick Bosa a nice big signing bonus of maybe $40 million, which I believe would be a record. Another bonus of 10 million, so 50 million in total bonus money. Guarantee 3 years and about 51 million of base salary, and he'll walk out with a deal that surpasses Aaron Donald's and also surpasses TJ Watt's, which is the key, right? They need to surpass Donald's number in average per year and Watt's number in fully guaranteed money. If you want a number for that, I would say 5 years and up to $159.08 million or $31.8 million per year. Sound good? I hope so. Maybe the 49ers will just send my contract proposal over to Brian Aralt, and that will get this situation solved really, really quickly. Well, he'll definitely be the highest paid defensive end in history. That's TJ Watt. We know he's going to pass TJ Watt. That's a given. Will he be the highest paid defensive lineman in history? If Nick Bosa does that, he's got to pass Aaron Donald. What's there to mention about Kinlaw? He's not up for a contract. Kinlaw is a backup defensive tackle now. 49ers optimistic he could put together a good contract year performance, but it's about the frontliners when it comes to media attention, right? It's about Nick Bosa. It's about Javon Hargrave. It's about Eric Armstead, and it's about whoever that 4-starter is going to be. So we've been talking a lot about Drake Jackson. Nick Bosa will sit out as long as it takes to sign this contract. I think that's what everybody expects. Saquon Barkley is good, but is he as well-rounded as Christian McCaffrey? I think Christian McCaffrey is such a good receiver. I mean, he's gone 1,000. Saquon Barkley never has. McCaffrey's really an exception in that running back market as far as value and irreplaceability. The problem with the running back position is one of supply and demand. There's just too high of a supply of good running backs to be able to perform the jobs that need to be done for running backs on the ground. But it's the guys that can split out and play receiver and really spearhead this new age of adaptable offenses. Those are the guys that are difference makers, true difference makers who are a little bit more rare, who the supply of whom is not as high at the running back position. That's where Christian McCaffrey is. He impacted the 49ers offense immensely in a positive direction last year. And I think Carolina saw his potential impact, which is why they paid him so much money when they signed him back in, what year was it? 2020 something. So it wasn't all that long ago that Carolina valued Christian McCaffrey enough to give him a big deal. 49ers have inherited that deal very happily. They paid a lot of draft picks to inherit an expensive running back deal. You could talk all you want about how you could find good running backs anywhere for a cheap price. Well, you can't find superstar impact running backs within the context of Kyle Shanahan's system anywhere for a cheap price. You got to pay for that. That's why the 49ers were willing to pay for Christian McCaffrey. Why don't we say 12-5 for 49ers record prediction? I reserve the right to change that prediction as I get more information. Yeah, Roger Craig. It's Roger Craig, 1,000, 1,000. Marshall Faulk then went 1,000, 1,000. Then Christian McCaffrey went 1,000, 1,000. Only 3 players have done it. Do you think Christian McCaffrey can become the first player to go 1,000, 1,000 twice? He might have that chance with the 49ers this year. They've already restructured McCaffrey's contract to answer this question. Daniel thinks the 49ers will go 17-0. There is a competition for second string quarterback, and it's between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold, with Brandon Allen waiting in the bushes. All right, everybody, thank you. Everybody, we're going to end this at 49 minutes. I thought it'd be perfect. We'd start the first training camp live with a 49-minute show. So we're almost there. 48 minutes, 45 seconds. Why doesn't everybody hit that subscribe button? We're trying to get to 50K by the end of training camp. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed the video from the safari. I think that we tried to tie it into this 49ers season very nicely. Let's put a bow on the 2023 off season and open up the 2023 season. First practice is tomorrow. If you like the fact that the first practice of training camp for the 49ers is tomorrow, hit the like button right now. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do that too. Also, hit that notification bell. It's going to be a really fun season, so hope everybody can follow along. All right, bye now.